Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike and Marty. We're here today with Michelle Bos-Lun. We're going to be talking about the primary that's coming up and what people are talking about in southern Vermont. But first, Marty with local events.
So local events. The classic movie this week is The Muppets Take Manhattan. That's about as classic as you can get for fun movies. It is sponsored by Pizza Palace. Happening again, just reminding everybody about the farmers market. It seems to be gathering some really good momentum. I drove by last Friday and it seemed like it was just hopping.
I was there. It was really good.
Was it? And then
just a great vibe. I mean, there's kids there, there's adults there, good food, music. I mean, it was just really nice.
And they had their first chef event.
They had Jamaican Jules at the food hub. They were going around and got the kids to buy stuff. And then they cooked a meal right there, and then everyone had the meal. It was really a nice event.
So, and then I believe BF3F, which then happened down on Canal Street right after, was a big success too. So big things happening. And speaking of big things, I forgot to put the poster up, but Old Home Days is just about a week away. It's Saturday, August 1st. The festivities, as I understand, are going to go from about noon until the fireworks. They've got bands lined up. Intercept being one of them. I believe Intercept goes on around 4.
Debbie and the Downers, I heard.
Debbie and the Downers, and I believe MV, is it MV? I can't think of the number. I'm awful.
14, 19.
MV, I think it's MV8, and I feel really bad that I don't have that in my head, but just chalk it up to old age. So, and I believe they've got some vendors and of course the fireworks. So, and Fact TV will be there. You might be able to have an on the street interview with Mike and Marty because we're going to be there.
I think they're doing a live, or not a live, but an auction. So
so you can come and support. Auction. You can come and support Fact TV. So awesome! Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back. You've been here a few times, which is awesome. So for the community that I'm sure most everybody knows you, but for the community members that maybe don't, if you could just give a brief introduction. How did you end up doing what you're doing?
Okay. Well, I'm hopefully going to be starting my 4th term in January if I'm reelected. I was involved in the community in a variety of different ways as a teacher. I did case management with teenagers. I did career development programs with teenagers. Mostly my work was with youth, but I was very involved in the community in a variety of different activities, and found myself when Nader Hashim stepped down. He actually suggested that I run for his seat, and I said, no, I'm a teacher, I'm not a politician. And he said, oh, but you have the right values. I would be really glad if you would run for my seat. And he talked me into it, and here I am. And he actually came back to the legislature and now is in the Senate. So it worked out for both of us.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, tell us a little bit about, so when you first got elected, you were elected during the COVID, so everything was online.
Yeah.
And then both for you and Leslie.
Yeah.
And then finally, what was it? Your second term, you actually got to be in person.
In like February of the second year, we were able to go in person.
How did that make it? What did you find that introduction? Did it make it? How was it? I guess
I feel like my entire, we call it a class. So our class that came in during COVID was really at a disadvantage. It was very difficult to learn a lot of legal procedural processes and to get to know legislative counsel who's supposed to be advising you about writing bills when you never met them. Like everything was on Zoom. So it was very difficult initially. There's a big learning curve for anybody who's joining the legislature. And for us, I think that was doubly so because we had to learn the basics on Zoom, and then we kind of had to start over when we got there in person. But it's challenging no matter what. I've now seen other classes come in starting fresh on the ground, and it still takes a long time to learn the ropes because unless you're a lawyer or you've had a background working in the State House, it's just not something that you know how to do. It's a citizen legislature, and so it takes a while to get up to speed.
And do you feel that you're kind of in your prime of that now?
I do, actually. I think I actually was originally not planning to run for re-election this year for a couple of different reasons. And I found myself as the session started in January this year thinking I was not going to run. And as the session went on, I realized I know what's going on here, and I feel like I can be more effective in shaping policy than I ever have. And partly that's my committee assignment, and partly that's having been in the legislature a little longer. And so I was like, you know what? It would be a waste to spend all this time and not at least do one more. And I've got work I still need to do. So I'm hoping I can go back.
So I know you've been going around talking to a lot of people in the state. What do you see as the maybe the key issue, or an issue that you would really like to help out with?
Yeah, well, there's a few issues that, I've been going door to door with Chris Lundberg, and we've knocked on, we're very close to 1,000 doors right now.
That's a lot.
Yeah, not everybody was home, but we knocked on the door, we left information, because I ordered 1,000 brochures, and I'm down to less than 50 right now. But I would say, without a doubt, the biggest single thing that we hear about from people is concerns about affordability. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's directly tied to property taxes, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's also affordability of healthcare, which is another really big issue. And I do actually hear, even though most of the people the people that have come to the door to have a conversation with us, most of them have not named housing, but some of them have named housing as a concern. And sometimes I think in terms of housing in a general sense of we need more housing so that we can have employers hire new people in terms of our economy. But then we also hear about people saying we need more housing because we have a crisis of homelessness and some people literally don't have a home. Mm-hmm. And so I think those would be the biggest issues, right. Affordability, housing, and healthcare affordability or healthcare access. Actually, healthcare has more than one prong that we need to address.
Healthcare is a huge nut, and it's all everything. The thing is everything is so tied up in this tight ball of I don't want to use the word dysfunction, but perhaps not optimal function. And you have to break it all apart. It's like you have to move this Jenga piece because once you pull that Jenga piece, I can't even imagine how you work through that.
It's very complicated, and it's made like exponentially more complicated. Rural communities all over America were having challenges before the current federal administration, but the current federal administration has made things much harder. Yeah. They have cut budgets from funds that were coming to Vermont are not coming to Vermont. And we get about a third of our budget from the federal government. We pay our federal taxes, they go to DC, and historically, we've been a receiving state. We got more than we sent, but that's not true right now. Mm-hmm. And then those of us that are serving in state government try to figure out how do we meet all the needs without the funds that we had, without raising taxes. It's not an easy task.
No, it's not.
We do have there are some ideas brewing about what we can do that will help that. But it's not going to, there's no quick and easy fix.
So what are your priorities? You talked about what you heard, but what are your torches that
Okay. So I do want to work on all those issues, but honestly, none of them are likely to fall to my committee. I've been on the agriculture, food resiliency and forestry committee for the last 2 years, and I really like it, and I think I'm going to be reassigned there. I hope I'll be reassigned there. So there are a couple things that I particularly want to keep working on. I introduced a bill last year, which was, the number last year was H613, but it was about mental health and policing. And in Vermont, pretty much every year for the last 50 years or so, we've had an incident somewhere in the state, a couple of times here in southern Vermont, where an individual is experiencing a mental health crisis and they end up being killed by the police. And the police don't want to kill people in a mental health crisis, and family members who call for help don't want their loved one killed in a mental health crisis. And so my bill has several parts to it, but one of the major elements is increasing the police training for mental health and de-escalation skills for police officers. Vermont right now is tied for worst in terms of the number of hours required for mental health training for police officers. And that's just not acceptable. Like, we shouldn't be tied for worst. If we're tied for worst, that's a sign that we need to do something.
Who are we tied with?
I'd have to look at the states.
Okay, I was just curious, because that might really put it into focus for folks.
I think there are 3, and I'd have to look it up, but it's not our neighbors, let's just say that. In terms of New England, we're definitely the worst.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because that particular bill seems like it'd be a win-win.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, so that to me is like a no-brainer. Seems a no-brainer, but
Yeah,
I know that
yeah.
doesn't
No,
always
it-
mean it is.
Yeah. I mean, I have introduced legislation around mental health issues before, and most of them haven't moved very much. The one this year, they did start to take testimony, but it wasn't until very late in the session, and there wasn't time for it to make it across before crossover. But I am planning to reintroduce the bill, probably edit some things a bit. But the basic ideas will be the same, and I think it's really important that it happen. I mean, I know I was a volunteer with NAMI before I was elected, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I facilitated support groups, and I was on their board for a while, and it's just not acceptable that somebody calls for help and they end up getting killed. I mean, it might be every now and then. There's occasionally going to be an accident like that, but we have a higher level of police killings than a lot of other states do.
We need to do better.
We need to do better. We do, and more training will help.
What else are you concerned? What are your other?
Well, the two bills that I have at top of mind that I want to go back and work on. That's one, the mental health and policing bill, which also has a little bit of an element around victim services as well when a tragedy does happen. But that bill is one. The other one that I'm really interested in is food as medicine. So I don't know if people are familiar with that phrase.
100% familiar.
All right. Okay.
You're preaching to the choir.
Okay.
Here,
All right.
but-
So I, from personal experience and from legislative experience, am very aware of the difference healthy food can make in addressing dire health needs, either reversing them or preventing them. And there's actually been a pilot project at 4 different clinics around Vermont, affiliated with a clinic. They have some sort of program that brings healthy, fresh Vermont farm foods to local consumers who would be people that are getting, would normally be getting some supplementary things like from a food bank, but the food bank doesn't often have the same kind of fresh foods.
It's more like
And-
a higher carbohydrate,
Yeah, exactly.
less
And-
nutrient
yeah,
dense.
Yeah. So these
options.
pilot projects have been very successful. I mean, like talking about our neighbors, I know in Massachusetts, they actually had a program similar to this. And what they found was, I think it was about a 15% decrease in hospitalizations for people who had access to these, like in the Massachusetts version had some slightly different details, but we'll work those out. But basically what it enabled them to do was have better access to fresh produce. And when they had the access and were able to access and use those fresher, healthier foods, they had these, a very clear and direct health
So
response
a clinical outcome.
from a policy outcome.
Yeah.
And we need that in Vermont, because one of the things about our healthcare system is that most of the diseases that people are getting sick with and getting treated with, they're things that have a component that could be modified by a healthier diet. When somebody gets diabetes or has congestive heart failure, because often there are dietary components to that.
Oh, 100%.
And so having this food as medicine kind of program where people both get familiar with maybe how to cook in a slightly different way and also have access to food provided in a different way, I think it could be a game changer, both in the health and wellness of local Vermonters, but also in preventing these more negative health outcomes down the road.
So I think, and to extrapolate that even further, it then supports what Vermont is known for in local farming.
Exactly.
And local
Exactly.
growing and healthy years ago at UVM, I think it was a psychology course, and I had a really old, sage-like professor, and he talked a lot about primary prevention.
Yeah.
And that's what we would be practicing is doing primary prevention, nipping something in the bud, especially something like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, not type 1, but where you have a window of time where you can
build healthier
habits and not go over the edge, as they say, to the point where you're then dependent on insulin. Then it becomes hugely expensive.
Right.
Your quality of life goes down.
Right.
So you actually have the control.
Yeah.
But if you can't access the food, you don't feel you have the control. So I think that's really That's a really, that
Right.
seems like, again, a win-win,
Right.
like a no-brainer. I don't
Right.
know.
And in that case, if I am reassigned to the same committee, I will have the committee of jurisdiction. And so I'll be able to work intensively on that policy.
nice.
I mean, I don't know, I think people probably know, but you introduce a bill to the legislature and then it's like you have a baby and then your baby goes to another committee and it's not your baby anymore. It gets adopted by a new committee and sometimes it gets changed so much when it comes out, it's not
Doesn't even look like you
right,
anymore.
Right, exactly. You don't even recognize it, you know. But this baby is going to stay in my committee, and I'll raise the baby as long as I can until it goes to the House
That is
and the
a
Senate.
really good analogy. I love that. I
Amazing
love
analogy.
that.
It's very
Well,
good.
there you go.
Because I personally don't always understand how things work in the
Right.
government. And I
Yeah.
know that you've done some talks on that.
I have.
Yeah,
I have.
so
I
that's
have a
nice.
series of a slideshow that I do called Making Laws, Making Change that I first designed for when I was working with teenagers at the Governor's Institute.
Mm-hmm.
But I have offered it for adults in the community as well. And I'm happy to do that for, you know, whoever wants to learn about civics. I used to teach social studies. So
Oh, there you go.
I'm happy to do that.
Let's see. Well, I would say operationally, how would that look? Though, is that like would there be food hubs in hospitals or just food hubs?
You know, the pilot project that was in 4 different places in
Yeah.
the state was going to make recommendations this summer that they were going to send to the legislature. I haven't seen them yet. So whatever their recommendations
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
we're going to take them and run because they have been trying this. They know what works. They know what didn't work. They had a couple different models. Some of them where you actually like are literally picking up vegetables when you go to your clinic appointment.
Yeah.
And other ones, they were giving out CSA, the Community Shared
Oh, neat.
Agriculture
Yeah.
shares. And they would say, okay, here, Marty, for this season, every week you can go and you pick up a bag of produce
nice.
from the farmer. So there's different models at the different projects. And so I'll take
Yeah,
whatever advice
take-
we get and we'll go with that.
Because I know a local program. It's not really local. It's across the river
Yeah.
program up north in the place Marty doesn't like to go. Is they have at the oncology clinic, they have bags of food that you can pick
Yep.
up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you talking
Yeah.
about the conveyor belt? Conveyor
Yes,
belt
my
health center?
conveyor belt.
Okay.
Anyway, but
I'm not
that's
saying
what
it's
I saw.
bad.
Yeah.
I'm not
Is
saying it's
that, and
bad.
I thought it was an amazing program because
Yeah.
people would come in,
Oh, absolutely.
have, get their treatment, and then leave.
Are you talking about Dartmouth?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So it's the same idea,
Yeah.
except that's for people who already have cancer. They
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
program called Healing Harvest,
Yes.
where you can access healthy foods and bring them home. And yeah, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
And for the record, I just don't always think it's the place to go for your basic health. I think you
didn't
should
mean to-
support your local
Right.
hospitals
And I agree
first.
with you 100%.
And when you need to
Yeah.
go there, you go there
Yeah.
because that's what their jam is.
Yeah.
Their jam isn't the routine stuff as much. That's
Yep.
what your local hospitals
Absolutely, I
can-
totally
can
agree.
support you
I
with.
totally agree. When I came back from Nepal and had typhus and didn't know what was wrong, I actually went to Brattleboro because I wanted the local hospital to figure out what was going on. And then when I had a specialty thing, I went to
That's what I'm
Dartmouth.
saying.
And
It's-
so
it's
I
differentiating.
try to go to Brattleboro wherever I can because we do need to support our local hospitals or we're not going to have them.
Whew, we
Yeah.
do. Do you? I mean, so healthcare nut.
Yeah, go for
Do you
it.
have any? Do you have? I know they're not your committees,
Yeah.
but do you have any insight onto maybe things that have happened in the past in the legislature that you just left?
Yeah.
You call them bienniums.
Yep.
Got the
Every
right
2
word.
years. By
And then kind of maybe what's on the
Yep.
what's on the horizon.
Well, the one I would say the most promising piece that we finished up with and we're looking to continue in the next year is working towards having universal primary care. So,
Oh, nice.
you know, some years ago when Shumlin was governor, we tried, I wasn't in the legislature at the time, but Vermont as a state tried to get universal health care and they couldn't figure out how to make it work financially. But there are many people in the legislature and around Vermont who believe if we had universal primary care, it would catch a lot of prevention. It could promote a lot of
100%,
prevention.
yeah.
It would catch things before they got too developed. It would be a huge asset and probably would end up saving the state money in the end.
I think. Well,
I think that's going to
agree
pass.
with you.
So right now, we passed a law that basically was putting together a study committee to figure out a plan. How could we make this work? And then once we get the results from them, the healthcare committee of this year will be looking at that. And I hope we can pass it this year. I hope it doesn't take us 2 years. And then we can start making the steps of how is this going to work so that all Vermonters will have access to, you know, an annual physical, having, you know, routine health checks, things like that.
No, I think again, you're practicing primary prevention.
Yep.
You're practicing before you catch a blood pressure incident, before it becomes a heart attack.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's not quite the right analogy, but before it becomes an emergency visit, I guess
Yes.
I should say.
Yes.
Because an emergency visit costs way more
Yep.
than a primary care
Yep.
visit.
Yeah, it's true.
And quality of life. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's quality of life.
Yeah.
We should have the dignity to have quality of life here in the state and not have to worry about we can't go because we can't afford it. And health is like, just seems to me like one of those things that we should just have.
Yeah.
Health care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back when we first started talking. You said you were reluctant when you first ran because you didn't think it was going to be your
Yep.
thing, and now it's your calling.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
tell you're
Yeah.
very passionate about
Yeah.
this. How did that evolve?
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned, even since we were talking here, I was a social studies teacher. I was teaching at Akimo Mountain School, and I was also working at a restorative justice center in Brattleboro. So my life was filled with social justice work
Issues,
and
yeah.
educating people about our government. And one of the things that I found, this was in, I taught for 6 years before I was elected, up until I was elected in 2020. And so I taught that year in 2020. And this was during the first Trump presidency. And I was teaching kids social studies and teaching about how things were supposed to work in terms of separation of powers and checks and balances. And I would tell my students, I would say, this is how it's supposed to work. But right now, this is a situation happening in our government and it's not working. And so that was a concern to me. And so Nader did have to talk me into running, but he was able to convince me that it was really an important use of my time, and that I was concerned I didn't have the skills. I'm like, I don't know how to be a politician. I'm a teacher. And he said, it's a citizen legislature, you're going to learn. And so once I got there, a lot of time was spent learning the ropes and figuring out how it works. And now I feel like I've kind of got my grounding. I was 4 years on one committee. I got switched to a new committee. I actually like this committee. Feels like a much better fit in terms of my interests and where my skills lie. And so it's like it's just been a good meshing. And like this particular year, earlier in the calendar year when we were in session, my committee passed some really important things. And I was really critical in those, like not to toot my own horn too much.
Oh,
but
that's
it's
what you're
true.
here for.
But it's true.
Toot away.
I absolutely
No one
was.
else.
I was a critical piece in the paraquat bill being passed, which was to eliminate paraquat in Vermont, to reduce the risk of exposure to toxins that are going to cause Parkinson's. And I was a critical voice in the baby food and formula labeling bill so that parents know about heavy metals in baby foods. And both of those things, I was a huge voice in those committees, and I helped to shape the way the final version ended up. And so I went through those experiences and I was like, I kind of know what I'm doing now, and I'm making a difference. So I need to keep doing it a little bit longer. So, okay,
Yeah,
there. I did
exactly.
toot my own horn,
did,
but there
that's
you go.
good.
Yeah, but you made a very
But
good
that's
point.
something I'm very proud of. So it's okay. I don't mind bragging a little bit. It was definitely a team effort, though.
Yeah, but I think that's but that's key for people to hear for re-election. And I think I did hear you. This was a quote directly from you. Relationship building makes policy possible. Can you explain that to the people?
Well, I think relationship building is critical on every level in the legislature. It's important that you have good relationships with your colleagues. It's important that you have good relationships with people on your committee. It's important that you have relationships with people back home to know how your decisions that you're making in Montpelier are going to impact them. And if you're not good on all those levels, then you're not going to be a good legislator, because you're not going to ever get your legislation is never going to get heard if you don't take time to know the committee chairs that aren't on your committee, and you're not going to pass things very well if you can't work with and
Others,
make
that might not be of the same
exactly.
We're down to about a
Listen
minute.
But so it's super important on every level, and you also don't want to do stuff up there that isn't reflecting what people want down here. And so all those things are super important. So the door knocking, it's partly about campaigning, but it's really important because it gives us a chance to hear what people are thinking and then move forward and try and implement that.
If people haven't reached, if you haven't reached out to people or you haven't seen people, how can they get information to you? What's the best? Is it your to go to your website?
Yeah, I mean, if they go to my website, there's also an email that's on the website. If they want to email me, is probably the best, right? For the immediate future in terms of I'm happy to call people back, but email is good to get things started.
Because you can do that on your own time.
michelleforvermont@gmail.com is probably the easiest during the campaign season.
Great.
Great.
So we are
out of
believe it or
time.
not. It goes so quick. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
Great.
you're welcome.
And that's it for this week. See you next week on the feed.